Right now you're seeing a beautiful, tall, and slender young woman dancing energetically to upbeat music, surrounded by other girls around her age. That girl is Lois Heather Mack. Her bright smile and playful expression when she realizes she's being filmed might make it seem like this is just a moment of pure fun and youthful spontaneity, and honestly, it is. It's the kind of scene that captures the light-hearted spirit of youth. Carefree, joyful, and full of life. However, behind that cheerful appearance, she was hiding a much darker side. You'll be shocked to see just how ruthless a person can become, especially towards someone who once gave them everything. Hey everyone, before we dive into the story, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, hit that like button, and leave any comment you want. It really means a lot to me right now. Thanks so much in advance, and now let's get into the story. Sheila Von Wees was born on June 10, 1952, in Minneapolis, into a family with ties to the U.S. Air Force. Her father, Neil Wees, was a former Air Force veteran, and her mother was Lenore Allen Wees. The family lived in Minnesota. Sheila had two siblings, a brother named William, often called Bill, and a sister named Debbie. Sheila's childhood was happy, fortunate, and peaceful. Her teenage years went just as smoothly. She was a model student and excelled academically. As she grew up, Sheila studied political science at Boston University, then went on to earn her master's degree at the University of Washington. Sheila once worked for a prestigious publishing company, which helped her professional career and social life to continuously grow. She often mingled with well-known figures from various levels of American society, including Senator Ted Kennedy, during her work on a political campaign in the 1980s. Sheila met Elliot Jacobson, who later became a close friend of hers. Despite her success in work and relationships, Sheila always dreamed of getting married, having children, and building a family. That dream seemed close to coming true when she started dating James Mack, a renowned conductor, composer, producer, and arranger. He had worked on over 60 albums and served as the head of the music department at Harold Washington College in Chicago. James also had children from a previous relationship. Sheila loved him deeply, and before long, they got married and moved to Illinois. Just when it seemed like the chance to have a child was slipping away because of her age, Sheila unexpectedly became pregnant at 43 in October 1995. She gave birth to baby Lois Heather Mack. Little Heather, as she was affectionately called in the family, not only received boundless love from her parents, but was also raised with great care. However, according to some close family acquaintances, Sheila tended to spoil her daughter a bit too much. In 2001, the whole family went on a Mediterranean cruise. Trusting the reputation of the company that owned the ship, they had no worries at all. However, during the trip, James suffered a leg injury. Unfortunately, the doctor on board didn't provide proper treatment, which left him partially paralyzed. As a result, he sued the cruise company, but the lawsuit dragged on for many years. 3 years later, police were called to the family's home following a complaint that James's child from a previous relationship was being prevented from seeing him. They accused Sheila of deliberately keeping them out, pretending no one was home by turning off the lights, although the matter wasn't brought up again afterward. The marriage seemed to carry on as usual. At the end of July 2006, James, Sheila, and Heather went on vacation in Athens. There, on Sunday, August 6, 2006, James passed away suddenly while at the hotel. He left behind a trust fund worth $15 million for his youngest child. From that moment on, the relationship between Sheila and her daughter Heather quickly deteriorated. At first, everyone thought it was just typical teenage rebellion, but things gradually got more serious. Sheila, who had never been involved in any trouble her whole life, ended up having to call the police to their home dozens of times because of domestic assaults. According to local police records, since 2008, authorities have had to intervene at least 35 times. These incidents included allegations that Heather twisted her mother's arm, bit, and hit her. There was even a time when Sheila had to call the police because Heather went missing after running away from home. Despite all this, friends and family say Sheila never stopped trying to mend their relationship. She regularly took Heather to counseling and psychiatric appointments. At that time, Heather was in high school, skilled in dance, and considered one of the top students thanks to her background and international experiences. However, Heather didn't hide the conflicts she had with her mother. This was clearly reflected in the tense phone calls she made from school during her transition to high school. At the height of her anger toward her mother, Heather met a young man named Tommy Schaefer, born May 13, 1993, in Chicago. He was the son of a woman named Keir Waker and was also known as an up-and-coming rapper under the stage name Tommy X. Tommy later admitted that he was going through a mental health crisis at the time. Records show that in 2012, he was convicted for disorderly conduct after a violent altercation outside a man's workplace in Lincoln Park. Regarding his relationships, Tommy was very close to his cousin, Robert Beep. As for Tommy's connection with Sheila, it was limited to a casual acquaintance at that time. In 2011, the 2001 cruise ship lawsuit was finally settled after legal fees were deducted. Sheila received $340,667. The official heir of James, his daughter, received $500,000. Although James had made a will just 5 days before his death, leaving all his assets to his daughter, the judge still ruled to award Sheila $500,000. After 2 tense years within the family, Sheila told a detective that she feared her daughter, wanted to get rid of her for good. Unfortunately, that fear wasn't unfounded. At that time, Heather had begun watching and tracking her mother's habits, routines, and movements. She believed she was smarter and more cunning, and often felt trapped living under her mother's control. Despite everything, they still kept up the tradition of traveling abroad. In 2013, they went to Santorini, Greece, but things started to take a downward turn in April 2014, when Heather, then 18, began dating Tommy, who was 21 at the time. Sheila strongly opposed the relationship, especially after they threw a party at a hotel and used her credit card to pay for it. From that point on, Sheila's opposition grew more intense. Meanwhile, Heather told her boyfriend that she wanted to get rid of her mother, believing her to be cruel and blaming Sheila for her father's death. She was convinced that her mother had deliberately taken away her inheritance. The young couple often texted each other, calling themselves the notorious criminal duo Bonnie and Clyde. They began discussing various plans to kill the 62-year-old woman, imagining together how much money Heather would have once she inherited the estate. At that time, Sheila was so afraid of her daughter that she confided in close friends. However, they still planned their summer vacation in 2014, this time to Bali, Indonesia, on July 23rd. Before leaving, Sheila reported to the police that someone had fraudulently used her credit card at the Conrad Hotel in Chicago. When the police arrived, they found Heather and her boyfriend there, having used the card to book a room and spent nearly $1,000. Tommy was arrested for disorderly conduct after losing control during the arrest. While sitting in the police car, he recorded a video of the moment and posted it online, trying to downplay how serious the situation was. He also bragged on social media about his upcoming vacation, adding that there was a chance he might not come back from where he was going. At that time, without Sheila knowing, her daughter had planned to bring her boyfriend along to Indonesia later that month. Tommy had to appear in court over the hotel incident. During this time, he and Heather turned to his cousin Robert for advice, since Robert was a few years older and they thought he might have useful suggestions if things escalated to a crime. In return, Robert was promised a share of Sheila's inheritance. Around that time, Heather discovered she was pregnant by her boyfriend, and all signs showed the couple welcomed the news with joy. On the day Sheila and her daughter set off on their trip, Tommy texted his girlfriend with excitement, talking about a dream scenario waiting for them as soon-to-be owners of a massive fortune. In August 2014, the woman and her rebellious daughter arrived at the five-star Street Sala Hotel on Bali, in this tropical paradise, with crystal-clear waters, whispering palm trees, and pristine white sands attracting visitors from around the world. Mother and daughter planned to mend their relationship during a luxurious 10-day vacation. At least, that's what Sheila believed. But Heather's real plan was heading in a completely opposite direction, and it had already begun to unfold. That very same day, Heather texted her boyfriend, saying everything was going according to plan. She went on to use her mother's credit card to buy a $12,000 business class plane ticket for Tommy. As soon as Tommy set foot in Indonesia, the trip quickly turned into a tragedy for Sheila, who had just found out her daughter was pregnant. On the night of August 11, 2014, the hotel's security cameras captured Sheila arguing with Tommy in the lobby. Not long after, out of the camera's view, Tommy used a metal object to attack Sheila, killing her. A few minutes later, Tommy texted his cousin, admitting that he had just committed a murder. Immediately after, the two began texting about the latest news from the NBA, a chilling display of coldness. Afterwards, Tommy and Heather stuffed Sheila's body into a suitcase, carried it down to the hotel lobby, then called a taxi and loaded the suitcase into the trunk, preparing to leave the luxury hotel. What the couple didn't know was that Sheila had previously instructed the hotel staff to block her daughter from using the credit card, so their escape plan failed. In the end, they decided to flee on the way. Not only did they have to leave the suitcase with the taxi driver, but they also discovered they couldn't leave Bali because their passports were locked in the hotel's safe. Left with no choice, they improvised and booked a room at a budget hotel called Resort Bali, about 14 kilometers away. Meanwhile, the taxi driver waited for them to return for 2 hours. When the passengers didn't come back, he went into the hotel to report it to the staff. They checked the room and found it empty. When the driver and the manager opened the trunk, they discovered red stains of blood on the suitcase and immediately went to the police station. The police opened the heavy gray suitcase and discovered Sheila's body inside. The autopsy confirmed that she died from blunt force trauma. There were also bruises on her hands, signs that she had desperately tried to fight back. While the police were investigating, staff at the Resort Bali Hotel grew suspicious of the young couple since they hadn't brought any luggage. When Tommy asked for the Wi-Fi password, the staff requested to see their IDs and immediately reported them to the authorities. When the police raided the room, they caught the couple in an intimate moment. During the interrogation, they heard the fabricated story the pair hoped would clear them, claiming an armed gang had attacked them at the hotel, and they had managed to escape. As for Sheila, unfortunately, however, their testimony clearly contradicted what the hotel staff and taxi driver had reported, prompting the police to immediately arrest both of them on suspicion of murder. Heather refused to cooperate and kept demanding an American lawyer. After their arrest and interrogation, they appeared on Indonesian TV. Heather wore a Chicago Fire Department shirt, smiling and smoking a cigarette inside the police station, while Tommy tried to hide his face from the cameras. The couple was then sent to the infamous Karabokan prison in Bali, known for its overcrowding and dangerous criminals. From there, they changed their statements multiple times. Both Tommy and Heather were charged with premeditated murder and faced the death penalty. Sheila's body was returned to the U.S. for burial. Meanwhile, Heather underwent multiple psychiatric evaluations. However, information about her previous therapy sessions remained confidential. As more details came to light, the case turned into a major scandal, making shocking headlines everywhere. When the media found out Heather was pregnant, public attention exploded even more. On March 17, 2015, Heather gave birth to a baby girl and named her Stella. She was allowed to raise her child inside the cramped prison cell. When the media asked about the baby's health, Heather revealed that her daughter was born with 6 fingers on her left hand and would need surgery to remove the extra finger. When Stella was just a few days old, her parents appeared in court. The couple wore plastic rings as a symbol of a spiritual marriage. Heather wore a red ring, and Tommy wore a blue one. During the trial, Tommy broke down in tears, claiming he only attacked Sheila in self-defense because she had assaulted him first after learning about the pregnancy. As for Heather, she said she just wanted to escape her mother's controlling behavior. However, Tommy didn't expect what Heather would say in court. She insisted she was innocent and never wanted her mother dead. She said she panicked during the argument and ran into the bathroom, but she also admitted to helping her boyfriend dispose of the body. The prosecution argued that the couple had planned the murder in advance, even claiming that Heather once tried to hire a hitman for $40,000 to kill her mother. Autopsy photos were presented in court showing Sheila's body with deep cuts on her face and injuries on her hands, believed to be the result of her final desperate attempts to defend herself. The three-judge panel found Tommy and Heather guilty of first-degree murder, however, instead of the death penalty as prosecutors sought. The court sentenced them to 20 years in prison. At this point, the harsh reality began to hit Tommy hard. It seemed like only after the trial ended did he truly grasp the brutal consequences of what had happened. Meeting Sheila's family left him even more overwhelmed. Every morning he woke up feeling worthless. The stress showed clearly on his face. His teeth started to decay, and dark circles appeared under his eyes. He sank deep into despair in August 2021. After serving 7 years in prison in Indonesia, Heather, now a mother to a baby girl, was released early for good behavior. The moment she stepped out of prison, she was immediately deported back to the United States. However, Heather's freedom was short-lived. The moment Heather stepped off the plane at Chicago's International Airport, federal agents were already waiting to arrest her. This time, she faced charges of conspiracy to commit murder against a U.S. citizen abroad, a serious federal crime brought by the U.S. government, based on evidence collected over several years. On top of that, she was also accused of obstructing justice by trying to delete digital evidence related to the murder. Once a girl who lived a life of luxury on a tropical island paradise, Heather now faces federal prison time on American soil, a place with no mercy and no leniency like she had back in Indonesia. Meanwhile, Heather's daughter, little Stella, was placed in the care of relatives, born behind bars and raised amidst a terrible crime scandal. She will likely spend many years healing from the invisible wounds left by the dark legacy her mother brought upon her. The most heartbreaking question remains: how can Stella grow up with a name untarnished by crime, when every detail of her mother's case has been etched deeply into the memories of people around the world? The Heather Mack and Tommy Schaefer case is not just a simple criminal tragedy, but also a stark reflection of the collapse of a mother-daughter relationship, of morality, humanity, and the betrayal of expectations within a family once regarded as a model of success and sophistication. Sheila, a woman who had a remarkable career in American politics, with a high level of education and a decent life, who loved her children with all her heart, ended her life in a sad and painful situation. The regrettable thing is that it was the daughter she raised, loved, and placed all her hopes in who ended her life. This case felt like a punch to society's understanding of family and motherhood, something once thought to be sacred and untouchable. Heather Mack didn't grow up in poverty. On the contrary, she had a life filled with material comfort, access to education, global travel, and a mother who provided for her every need. But that very overprotection, combined with a lack of boundaries, discipline, and mutual understanding, twisted their relationship into something far from healthy. She didn't see sacrifice, only control, and instead of seeking understanding through conversation, she made a devastating choice. A choice she believed would set her free, but one that was permanent, irreversible, and deeply tragic. The coldness shown by Heather and Tommy didn't end with the act itself. It was also seen in the way they handled what came after, with a chilling calm, as if they had just completed some minor task, not taken a human life. That brazen attitude didn't come from ignorance, it came from a deeper systemic moral decay, where money, selfishness, and a sense of personal power had completely overshadowed basic human values. Even after her arrest, Heather's behavior continued to spark public outrage. She was seen smoking at the station, smiling in front of cameras, wearing a firefighter's jacket as if mocking the situation, and demanding an American lawyer as though she were entitled to special treatment. There was no sign of remorse, even. After giving birth in prison, Heather continued to manipulate public perception using media attention, like a pawn in her pursuit of a twisted form of fame. As for Tommy, the eagerness and smug confidence he once showed during the crime slowly faded behind bars. He began to physically deteriorate, his teeth rotting, his spirit breaking, dark circles under his eyes, a living symbol of decay from the inside out. But sadly, that awakening came far too late. It couldn't bring Sheila back, couldn't mend a family already shattered, and certainly couldn't restore the youth that had been lost to a life consumed by wrongdoing. This case also forces society to ask itself, is there a hidden flaw in the way we raise our children, something we fail to see? An unconditional love without limits, a boundless forgiveness without control. Sometimes, unknowingly, they can nurture the very darkness within the home we've built. Sheila loved her daughter deeply, believing that love could fix everything. But in the end, it was that very unconditional love that blinded her to the warning signs, leading to a price she ultimately paid with her life. From a legal perspective, this case serves as a wake-up call about how young offenders can manipulate the system. Heather showed no remorse, only calculation. She fully understood that, as an American citizen in a Southeast Asian country with a very different justice system, she could exploit every loophole, from demanding an American lawyer to avoiding testimony and hiding evidence. But in the end, justice spoke. She was convicted, her path to freedom blocked, and when she returned to the U.S., she faced prosecution once again, not by a foreign legal system, but by the very country that raised her. After everything, Sheila was laid to rest in peace, but her memory, a mother, a successful woman, and a victim of one of the most unimaginable tragedies any parent could face, will live on forever. Her story stands as a stern reminder. Love, if not grounded in respect and boundaries, can become a double-edged sword, and that giving everything doesn't always guarantee something good in return. Sometimes, what we get in return is the most painful betrayal from the very ones we love the most.